This month's episodes celebrate 200 years of the Erie Canal. These installments are a personal convergence with the Virgin Mary and my growing in understanding of her presence wherever I traveled. First, a book update. As you know, NicoSteves.com is the best way to keep updated as to what's what, plus the exclusive way to get onto my mailing list. And there's a link posted there at NicoSteves.com that goes to the YouTube channel. Currently, on the YouTube channel is a video where I read from my book, The Very Fine Light, plus these podcasts are now populating the channel as well. Nico Steves here. I'm sharing an intersection of my first original work and how it impacted my getting closer to the Virgin Mary over this month's podcasts. Why, you may ask? Because this month is the commemoration of the bicentennial of the Erie Canal, which is a 350-mile artificial waterway that crosses New York State and helped turn New York City into the center of the New World. Now, back 25 years ago, I made an independent movie called The Origins of the Erie Canal, which I recently added a 25-year later section. You'll be hearing the soundtrack of this 45-minute story broken up into 4 12-minute podcasts, and you'll be hearing them here for free. As for the convergence I mentioned with respect to the Virgin Mary, while shooting this work, I traveled from Atlanta to record the documentary and extensively traveled across New York State about a week here, a week there, over a 5-year period. Well, I would be meeting people named Mary, Marie, Marion, and what I began to appreciate when going to these new places and not really knowing anybody was just how the Virgin Mary is truly everywhere to be found. I'd see her name on churches, hospitals, schools, town streets, shrines, basilicas, cemeteries, and I felt at home. I was with a friend. Really, this is a tribute to Mother Mary and my growing in understanding of her presence wherever I traveled. It started during this documentary journey in parts of New York State unknown to me. She was always there, and I became more sensitive to the real nature of her being everywhere, and I've continued to find her as I leave the country too. And so I hope you enjoy, in 4 parts, the history of the Erie Canal that's been open for 200 years, right here on Constant Procession. And now enjoy this installment of the Erie Canal, Installment 3.
Nathan Roberts was the great canal engineer. He had no canal experience, and he had no civil engineering degree. They learned by doing. So here comes Nathan Roberts, and he says, what a wonderful thing here. We'll just do these combined locks. That one lock gate serves both lock chambers. Another way of viewing that would be there's no stretch of canal in between the locks. You go from one lock immediately into the next, and it's a staircase, which could be problematical if there's only one of them. Because if one boat started at the top, one had to wait until that boat got through all locks before you could go in, right? And then you may have had to refill them all because they would drain each one going down. The escarpment, something called the deep cut, for 4 or 5 miles, and I think a maximum depth of 45 or 50 feet. They just blasted through this solid rock, the Lockport Dolomite, as geologists would call it many years later, even knifing a towpath on the side, which is there to this day.
At long last, the day arrived for the opening of the Erie Canal. October 25th, 1825, the beginning of a week-long event celebration that would be matched only by the ending of world wars, Lindbergh's flight across the Atlantic, and the celebration of man's first setting foot on the moon. Never before had New York City and those upstaters put on a greater, more inspirational event. The celebration started in Buffalo and would ripple through speeches and banquets in all the cities along the canal. But how would you let those along the canal know the barges had left Buffalo in 1825? Ingenious as always, a plan was designed to move cannons from the War of 1812 into position at quarter-mile intervals all along the path, then down the Hudson River 250 miles to New York City. When the barges finally started out, a cannon was fired in Buffalo. 100 minutes later, after cannon upon cannon thundered across the state, the people in New York City heard that the Erie Canal had opened.
Low bridge, everybody down. Low bridge, for we're coming to a town. And you'll always know your neighbor, you'll always know your pal if you've ever navigated on the Erie Canal.
DeWitt Clinton poured a cask of water from Lake Erie into New York Harbor. Suddenly, the world had become smaller. And for almost 100 years, teams of mules pulled across the state of New York. It was the start of a series of canals that at their peak would extend 2,500 miles across the nation. A canal system that transported goods and people into and out of the interior of the country, creating wealth and commerce all along the Erie Canal path and the points stretching west to the Rocky Mountains.
There were upwards of 5,000 boats registered on the Erie Canal in any one year. Legend has it that between breakfast and lunch, if you stood in one spot, you would see 200 boats go by in front of you. The freight boats were family owned and operated. The husband was the captain, the wife was the cook, kept the clothes washed and so forth, did the housekeeping on the boat. They lived in the rear end of the boat into a nice little apartment built into the stern of the boat. The kids of the family were the rest of the crew. If they didn't have any kids, they had to hire help, mainly to drive the mules.
I've got a mule and her name is Sal, 15 miles on the Erie Canal. She's a good old worker and a good old pal. 15 miles on the Erie Canal. We've hauled some barges in our day, filled with lumber, coal, and hay, and every inch of the way we know, from Albany to Buffalo.
The canal season opened just after Easter. They usually ran until ice started to form on the canal. They would either leave the boat and go home or live on the boat. Some of the boats were rafted together and brought down to New York City where they would live there through the winter. That's when the kids would go to school.
Life was so good on the Erie Canal for over 75 years, constantly improving until the biggest canal enlargement plan chose to reroute it around the cities.
It was decided that bigger is better. We've made a lot of those mistakes. And in this case, it was quite major because it changed what the system was designed to do in the beginning. The horse-drawn canal went through all the communities because it was delivering goods and taking goods from community to community. Well, they enlarged it and moved it out of the cities because the cities said they didn't want it there anymore. And they also got it away from all the customers. The big barges carried 3,000 tons, and nobody needed 3,000 tons of anything. What the hell are you going to do with 3,000 tons of paper clips? You know, it just doesn't make any sense, even if you're a big stationery store.
I've got a mule and her name is Sal, 15.
The Erie Canal was a showcase for the American dream. Bigger and more complex than any one person involved with it, it was built out of a common need, guided by excellent leaders. It was so successful that the biggest problem New York State had for many years was what to do with the surplus money it generated.
Low bridge, everybody down. Low bridge, for we're coming to a town. And you'll always know your neighbor, you'll always know your pal if you've ever navigated on the...
It still exists today, and its future is being charted by a new group of capable leaders like those at Camillus Erie Canal Park, Mid-Lakes Navigation Company, and the Village of Fairport, New York. People who are restarting this economic wonder in imaginative new ways, determined to remember the forgotten wonder.
When I was a young boy, I grew up in a house about 400 or 500 yards from the banks of the canal, and as a young boy we used to go down to the canal, do a lot of ice skating on the canal, swimming in the canal. We've seen the amount of traffic on the canal increase each year. There's certainly more and more pleasure craft on the canal, and in the village here we see many boats tying up on both the north and south banks of the canal. Many of the boaters come into the village and spend not just one but maybe 2 or 3 nights in our village.
Well, we feel the Erie Canal is one of the best kept secrets in the U.S. It's just beautiful and peaceful and very relaxing. And I don't think I want to go home.
The Erie Canal was the very beginnings of the great westward expansion, the beginnings of progress, the beginnings of prosperity. We're right here in New York State, in the Erie Canal. Today we take for granted how easy it is to move from one place to another in a car. We take for granted how easy things have become. In the 19th century, people understood the struggles of just staying alive. So I think that if we remember those people in the past, it would give us a greater appreciation for the luxuries that we have today.
That's it for this special about the Erie Canal. Please come back next week for more. This is Nico Steves. I hope you enjoyed this installment. My book, The Very Fine Light, can be found using the title The Very Fine Light on Amazon.com. Please feel free to contact me at nicosteves.com. That's Nikos Steves, Steves.com. If you like this episode, and for more, share them with friends. This is Nico Steves. Thank you. See you next time.